Okay, folks, we'll get this meeting to begin. I'll call the meeting of the Board of Appeals to order. First of all, for the people up here, have any of you gone out to see any of the properties that we're going to consider tonight?
I saw 1 and 2.
You saw 1 and 2?
I saw the 4 new ones. I was already at the ones from last year.
Okay.
I saw every property except number 5.
Okay. Good. I have not seen any of them except the old ones. Do any of you have reason to believe at this point that you'll have to abstain from voting for any of these items tonight?
No.
No,
No.
Okay, you can always change your mind later. And did you speak with anyone regarding the variance request before us tonight?
No.
All right, we'll get right down to it. For item number 1, let me ask a question right from the beginning. We're going to hear from the applicant, and is there anyone here who wishes to speak against the variance proposed for item number 1? Okay, so we do have some antis. We'll hear the applicant, and then we'll hear the people that are, the other ones here that are for item number 1, and then we will hear from the opposition to item number 1. So first off, if I could have the applicants come up and make their case for the variance request on Nicolay Drive.
Just sit up here.
Come on in.
I'm Joel Airford. I'm with Mach 4 Engineering. I'm Corey Cabot, owner. Before you tonight, what we're looking at or requesting a variance for essentially 2 items. One is the transitional side yard. The property, it's kind of a north is kind of kitty corner here, so either this is referred to as the north or the east side. This is the old Carlton Inn on the bay, right by UWGB, Nicolay Drive. So we're requesting a variance for the transitional side yard setbacks. What we're proposing here is replacing the old Carlton East, which was, I believe, last used strictly as a tavern, primarily. Replacing with a bed and breakfast that would have a liquor license, but it would be just for guests. It's not going to be an open tavern any longer. So it'd be a commercial enterprise. We're requesting a transitional side yard variance because of the width of the lot and the required parking. There is no on-street parking on Nicolay Drive and very limited off-street, actually virtually no off-street parking. The property to the south is actually a narrow strip. Immediately south is a narrow strip owned by UWGB, and then there's a residence to the south, and then there's a residence to the north. They're located a little bit further closer to the bay. Our side yard setbacks is, there's an existing shared driveway on this corner. We're disconnecting that and directing all traffic to the other existing driveway that is in the southern side of the site. We're transitioning over. There'll be a small retaining wall, and we're putting getting back over. The Capwells are going to live in the lower level of the facility, and then the bed and breakfast would be upstairs. This back portion here is the driveway to their residence. Their garage is actually underneath in the back. So our transitional side yards are primarily up on the east and west sides. We're coming in as quickly as we can, but still allowing enough parking in the front. Our narrowest point is about 3.6 feet off the property line. The building itself is actually 20-some feet off of the north line and 10 feet off the south line. This little narrow strip is actually zoned commercial. This is still residential. So to offset the transition side yard, there's some existing fencing, and that's what you're seeing here in existing vegetation. We would supplement that with new fencing and a vegetative screen. They're going to have a fairly extensive landscape associated with it. This bed and breakfast is going for a four diamond AAA rating, and they've got some pretty stringent landscaping requirements. So we're going to do vegetative screens as well as a board-on-board fence on the side yards to help ease some of the, if we would be successful in this variance application. We need the width to get the required parking as well as, facilitate traffic in and out of here. The second item we're asking for is a variance on is the internal green space requirement of 10% on a commercial parking lot. We've got a floodplain off the bay and on the bay side, so we can't push the building further back, and we didn't want to go too farther back. As the residents on the adjacent sides are closer to the bay, we didn't want to interfere with, their view of the bay. So we're proposing not having an internal green space or islands in the parking lot. In hopes of offsetting that, we're proposing to go with a permeable pavement system so that you wouldn't, essentially this, as far as stormwater management goes, permeable pavement acts as essentially green space. So the water will infiltrate down through the system, and that's how we'll accomplish our stormwater management and hopefully offset some of the, if we'd be successful in an internal variance request. Is there anything that you want to add, Corey, or do we?
No, I think that was, we did a bunch of different options that we tried with the architect. Putting a driveway underneath, but it won't work because you need the driveway for the fire trucks to get around back because it's a commercial building. So that's the reason why that it's just really, it's tight because it's a bay lot. The 10% for the green space in front, if we have to do that, it's very difficult. We're in Wisconsin, you gotta plow, you have big storms. I don't have anywhere to go with it. I literally am gonna have the guys push it up and take it out with a dump truck. And it's gonna be hard if there's in the middle of here that you have to have for they're gonna have a hard time getting around it. Because it's a small lot on the bay. So that's really the reason why we're asking for that variance for that. And then the setbacks is again to fit the building in to the size of the lot. And with the 4 diamond rating for that, the reason why we're doing that is there's nothing else like it in the state of Wisconsin. We did the research for that, and that's really what we want to shoot for. And you need a bigger room. That's just part of the 4 diamond rating for that system. So that's another reason why the buildings, you need about 8 feet.
You talked about the required parking. Is there a code from the city that you had to match to get a certain number of parking spaces?
Correct.
Yes. There is parking requirement. There's 1 stall per guest per dwelling unit, 10 guests. So we meet the requirements of the city ordinance.
For the
For
10
occupancy.
suites, 10 rooms. But our key is usually, in the Carlton had that before, is weddings, because it's gorgeous sunset, gorgeous view. And so in order for the wedding, we put it up to, so we can have about 100 people, it'll be a smaller wedding, but that's what the additional parking spots are for on the weekends. That's what we're keying in for.
Okay.
And I didn't want to put any parking on this end down here, it's in the way. When we put the parking down on that side, it just doesn't work. And then if it's late night, somebody's coming in after a Widener Center movie, their car doors, it's closer to them where their houses are. So that's why we wanted to keep all the parking up on this end where there's no residents up there on this end.
Paul, could you explain the transitional setback requirement here that has to do with the fact that it's commercial in the midst of residential?
Sure. To clarify, there was some zoning changes we made late last year. The executive zoning line that kind of ran through this property, so we squared up those lines to be on the property line. But on the north side, in that case, there's commercial zoning against residential zoning, so that requires a transitional yard. Because of the height of the structure, it's required to be a 20-foot transitional yard. It's a non-residential use adjoining a residential property. So there's a 20 feet of green space, there's a fence, hedge, or berm that's required, there's trees and shrubs that are also required as part of that transitional yard to create that separation or that buffer from the residential property on the commercial side.
Okay, so you've got a narrow lot, you've got requirements on either side. You want to get a lot of parking in because you anticipate extra attendance for weddings and things
Right.
and possibly on weekends. Okay. Could you explain to me, one of the two of you, when I was there, looking at it, it seemed like there were all sorts of parking driveways, joint, whatever over here. And I think you've already explained the joint one up there. So I take it, not only are you replacing the Carlton, you're kind of replacing some existing driveway accesses to various properties?
No, it's actually, here's the existing survey. So those joint driveways you're talking about,
Yeah,
just
this-
switch it, so you're looking at the
Same
same
thing.
thing. Those joint properties are for the, I believe for the residents to the south, and then
Yeah.
I don't know if there's another lot to the further south there. We're not touching that.
Okay.
That's remaining as is. It's the lot, it's the residents to the north, which is back here, that has currently a shared driveway, which is, you know, quite steep. So we're directing everything back to this existing driveway to the south, pulling it back onto our property. This one will be, is separate now, and it'll be separate in the proposed condition. This one is shared now, but will be eliminated.
We're told that we have to eliminate that. There can only be one driveway now with the new ordinances.
It was nice having two.
Yeah, a lot of people used to turn around.
This one's, we chose the southern one because this, in the winter, this is relatively steep. Its functional value was less than taking it to the south. But again, we're relocating that slightly north so that it's all on, it won't be, this isn't a shared driveway now, but it's over the property line.
Yeah, it's like that almost. 'cause
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's got all the mailboxes and stuff,
Yeah.
and then it starts the neighbors.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that, just in case we have some comments later
Well,
on.
hopefully, we're gonna clean that situation up. That didn't necessarily, it didn't play too much into the variance request.
Okay, I've asked my questions. Gentlemen, do you have any other questions for the applicants?
You read mine, actually. What's the landscape buffer in the chart? What does that exactly entail?
So
There's a landscape buffer that you said that we put in.
It's a transition yard.
That's what,
It has
that's
to be.
what Paul was referring to. It's that 20 feet. And in that 20 feet, there's gonna be, proposing a board-on-board fence and then a vegetative buffer. Like, right now, right now, there's some cedars, sorry,
That's,
over, this is the south side, and this is the north side. So there are some vegetated, cedar trees and so forth on, right along the property line. It'd be something similar in nature to that, but the length of the property.
Okay. That's what you're gonna put in, or?
Whatever the
Yes.
code
Yeah.
says that we have to put in for the fence as well. Because I know that, like, going up, if you're pulling out your driveway, it can't be 6 feet tall all the way to the road. It's got whatever
Okay.
that is. And on each side of the driveway, and the parking lot will be landscaped on 4 sides.
There's a couple different styles, split rail, and then there goes the board on board, so we'd make it uniform on our side.
are you replacing this fence?
We're talking to the landscape, I've got 4 different landscape companies that are giving quotes. All of them recommended a maintenance-free vinyl. That's what they said for a privacy fence.
So if I understood it, you're gonna move the driveway to an access where it would have less interaction with the residential? Is that what?
The driveways
Yes,
are,
both of them
one's
actually.
changing up, and the south one is staying the same.
Well, it's staying, it's being shifted slightly, so that it'll be all, right now, it kind of comes in here,
Uh-huh.
so it's slightly over the line, kind of comes like this. We're shifting that north, so it's all on our property. And this is the joint one to the house to the north that would disconnect, we're leaving their driveway in place, obviously, but disconnecting our portion, so there won't be any access on that side.
Okay.
If we're supposed to have a 20-foot transitional zone, what are you proposing in actuality? So it's less than 20, what is it?
It's up in the front, again, keep in mind the houses are in the rear. The worst case scenario is the parking lot will be about 3.5 feet, 4 feet from the property line. And then once we get around the corner from the parking, then we jut in. And again, this driveway, which is gonna be the residential driveway for the Capwells, is about just almost 16 feet off the property line here. And correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but on the south side, because this narrow strip is actually commercial, we don't have the 20-foot transition there. So our encroachment on that side, I think it's what's transitional, 6 for commercial? And we're about 4.5, 4.6 feet at the driveway. Then again, we necked it down to to get back to the 10-foot.
What's the origin of that commercial strip on the south side?
I think we, best we can figure, we inherited we inherited an old zoning from the town of Hobart, or not Hobart,
Town of Scott, I
Town of
think.
Scott. The zoning was, these property lines run this way. The zoning ran at a diagonal. So it was like commercial, residential, commercial. This had commercial and residential, actually in 3 spots. This, towards the bay was residential, commercial, and residential. There was 2 different zoning in 3 different spots on the parcel. So we cleaned it up to follow the lot lines.
So that easement is an artifact of historical importance, perhaps.
The easement?
The 10-feet strip? Or do we get-
No, this
That's
is,
the UWGB used to, I've heard, this is hearsay, I don't know if it's true or not, they pulled water out of the bay and watered the golf course.
it's actually, it's a parcel, believe it or not. It's not an
Yeah, I
easement.
noticed it was a parcel,
Yeah.
a real live parcel. It's
Yeah.
got its own number here.
There is an easement in here because there's a Met line that runs through here.
Okay.
Sanitary sewer lines actually down along the bay. So there is an easement overlaid in here, but it's actual, very unique 10-foot strip of land.
Yeah.
One question, as far as the interior lot landscaping that's required, do you know how that affects the amount of parking that, you would end up with compared to what you're proposing now? Are we talking like a loss of 6 spots, or, did you do any of that kind of analysis?
Let's see. Well, we have about 2,900 square feet of parking area. So you'd be losing probably 3 stalls.
Okay. I guess my question to you is, is that 3 stalls critical?
I believe it to be very critical because
Okay.
I don't know too many weddings that are 100 people.
Mhm.
So that's the challenge. I'm trying to get as close to 100 as I can, and that's all that would fit in there,
Okay.
to be able to drive around and get back to my garage in the back.
Right.
So Paul, the only, just to make sure I understand the variances here, we've got the expanded side yards that they are asking variances on, really on both sides.
Just the north side.
But really just the north side. And then we've got the interior landscaping for the parking lot.
Correct.
There's no green space ratio requirements that are being violated here,
No, not that I'm aware of.
even before they put the permeable surface in the parking lot?
No, it's 20% in the C1 district, and that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, we've got quite a bit of green. Actually, we're gonna be increasing the amount of green space.
By about
a third.
50%.
Yeah. Now, what type of permeable or semi-permeable surface do you intend to put in there? What is it going to be, pavers? Is it going to be?
Well, that's what we're still going
Asphalt with a
through.
bunch of holes punched in it?
No,
No, I've talked to 2 landscape companies that do the permeable pavers. And they're pavers, and then they have this little gap in between, and they put rock in there, because I had to learn about it. The other choice that we can do is it's called pervious concrete. So it's concrete poured, but water runs right through it, which is strange to me, but they poured it in Wisconsin, because I checked, I'm like, okay, is that gonna freeze, thaw, crack, be useless in 5 years? And they're like, no, we've been doing it in Wisconsin for 15 years. So, and they said, here's the sites, and go out and see them.
They don't really look any different aesthetically.
It'll look like a paver
Pavers,
parking lot.
as you really would look at it, has a slightly larger gap at the top. And they fill that with the sand, it looks just like a regular paver. Underneath, there's a rock. You do different things underneath, but from the surface, it looks no different than pavers or concrete.
Yeah, and the quote that I got, I like pavers and I like the idea of it, but it's 50 to 100% more than pouring regular concrete.
Oh.
So there's a huge cost, but I think it's the right way to go.
Okay, further questions, gentlemen? Okay, if you could have a seat. Deal with the rest of the... Yeah, why don't you leave those up there? People might want to point at you.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, before we get to the rest of the pros, are there any aldermen here that wish to speak regarding this project? Mr. Wisbitsky?
Thank you very much. It's my last meeting tonight, so
Ah.
I want to say goodbye to you guys and appreciate the good job you've done. I would also like to add to the fact that the type surface is basically what we've done at Bay Beach. And that requirement we had out there was probably going to have to be a pond or something, Doug. And we have satisfactorily done that parking lot out there, pretty similar to what we're talking here.
Okay.
Pretty excited about seeing something go in there, but man alive, it's just hard to make things work sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Okay, is any other alderman going to speak on this one way or the other? All right, we'll get to the people now who are in favor of this, and for those of you who are against it, we will not forget about you. But if we could have, I don't know if I can, I don't know up here which is who, which one of you are for or against, so I'll take the first one who wishes to speak in favor of this project. Anybody wishes to be the first one? Yes, sir.
Keith Plaster,
Yes.
I'm in favor of.
Okay. Where do you live, sir?
I live in Seymour, but I am president and CEO of Panacea Group, general contractor of the project.
Okay. All right. We understand your interest. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Margie Reichwald,
Okay.
I'm for it. I live on 2988 Durham Road, long-time resident out there. Have had the pleasure of living across the street from the Capwells, and nothing but peaceful, respectable people. I couldn't say enough about them. I was born and raised in Green Bay. I work at the university. I drive along Nicolay every day, and I'm so happy to see something going in that spot, and knowing the Capwells personally, knowing it's going to be a beautiful, respectful property, whatever they put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others wishing to speak in favor of the project? Okay, let's get to the people who are not in favor of the project. Who wants to be the first one? Yes, sir.
My name is Ross Kronowski with Gerber's Law. I represent John and Cheryl Mashad. They're the property owners directly south of that easement.
Okay.
What's the address on that?
2603. And can I point out, just for everybody's, this map is incorrect. All those property lines are shifted north by what I'm guessing is about 10 feet. So that easement comes back to the south, and there's a fence running along that, at the very north edge of that easement. And I'll let Ross talk from there.
The Mashads are opposed to the variances that are proposed this evening. The purpose of my attendance tonight is just to bring to the board's attention that with regard to that easement there, that 10-foot strip, there is a dispute as to ownership of that. There has been a claim for adverse possession filed by, I'm sorry, not a claim at this point, a notice of claim has been filed on behalf of the Mashads, notifying the Board of Regents that a claim will be made. An affidavit of adverse possession has been filed with the Register of Deeds in Brown County, and I just want to, I guess, bring to light the uncertainty of this project as far as the dispute of ownership there and potential future setback issues that may occur, because the intent is, should we be successful with this adverse possession claim to lobby to have that rezoned residential.
If you were successful in that, how would that change the variance request or the variance requirements for the Capwells?
Really, what I wanted to do is just bring to light the whole grand scheme of things, the uncertainty of the project, the variances that are being requested this evening, as well as this potential violation should this be successful. That's what I wanted.
It just means that the variance that is now being requested for the north side would also have to apply to the south.
Correct, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, I should have been more clear on that. It would have been a 20-foot as opposed to the 10 or 6, I believe, right now, because it'd be abutting directly with the residential property.
Okay, just to make sure I understand. And I do feel a whole lot better now that you told me that this is 10 feet off, because I thought, wow, everybody's off on this. So the Mashads are right here? Is this where you-
That's correct. If I might show you.
And then you're talking about this, which we would move to here, presumably.
This line would move to this fence line.
Right.
And that fence has been there for over 40 years. And for over 20, close to 25 years, put some pictures of it. I've basically been maintaining that as my yard, picking up trash and litter from the restaurants next door, cutting the weeds along the fence. It's basically been my property and maintained by me and solely me, and the previous owner of my property before that. And that's the basis of the adverse possession claim.
Position is pretty strong that all the elements have been met for the adverse possession. Now it's just a matter of going through the legal process with it.
Okay, so that's your main legal interest, is to have us, in the case before us, be aware of this possible change of ownership.
Correct.
Or your claim to the change in ownership on that easement.
Correct.
What is your anticipated time of resolution?
Right now, we are currently at, I believe it's at day 86 on our notice of claim. You need to wait 120 days before filing a complaint against a government entity. So we're waiting about another 30 or so more days, a little over 30, to file our complaint with the courts for adverse possession, assuming they don't stipulate to the fact that, yes, we meet all the elements and they're just going to provide ownership. So.
Before we get to the rest of the people that are opposed, Paul, could you explain the path that this property has gone through regarding other proceedings such as planning and whatever other permitting was required?
Yeah, so I think the capital started this project, late last year, or at least they contacted us about the development there. We mentioned the issue about the zoning. They had challenges putting that structure on there with the current zoning they had last year. As Joel has mentioned, the zoning line kind of ran through diagonally like this. So there was residential, commercial, and residential again. So again, we inherited that from the town of Scott. There was never a need to change that because there was no new development proposed. So as a result of the Capwell's interest, we asked them or suggested to them to make application for rezoning. So what we did is we changed those lines to match up to property lines. So we zoned the 10 feet that the Regents have here, the Capwell's property, and then the other two properties to the north and one to the south, they also had commercial zoning that went back to residential. So we squared those lines up. So that's kind of how we got to today. So they've gone through the site plan process. There were some deficiencies or some issues with the site plan, so hence the reason for the request for variance.
Okay. And Mr. Michaud, have you stated your opposition in previous proceedings regarding this development?
Well, I have to claim my bad on the first time we came around. The letter that came out didn't really spell out the variance on that 10-foot parcel. And I voiced, that I was in favor of changing the zoning. And you're only allowed to speak once at those meetings. And it became apparent to me as the meeting went on that 10 feet that I've been taking care of as my yard was in question, and I wasn't allowed to talk again. My wife went to the second meeting with a prepared statement and never got to talk. And I don't know when the third meeting, apparently a notice doesn't go out about the third meeting, so no, we didn't. I dropped the ball by voting my approval for the process because I didn't want to hold the development back. But then I found out again about the easement halfway through and I'd already spoken. So I'm not feeling like I got a fair shake in it, but it is what it is.
So you're here tonight to explain that adverse possession question.
Yes, if I might continue.
Sure.
A few more points. Again, we've lived there 25 years. The Georges have been there 50. And 60, I'm sorry. And it's, it's a beautiful place, but we live there, for the summer times, really, watching the sunsets and the tranquility. And actually had beer with Corey on Saturday night on my back porch. And, he commented a couple of times how peaceful and tranquil it is. And I kept thinking, but you can have 100 people every Saturday and a wedding 60 feet away. So there's issues with it. But what we have here, to me, is a commercial property that shouldn't be commercial. And it's right in the middle of a beautiful, peaceful residential area. So what it needs to be sited there needs to really be conscious of what it's going to do to the neighbors. And it has to fit the scale. And, everybody gets excited when we talk about a bed and breakfast. Oh, a cozy little bed and breakfast. We're not talking a quaint little bed and breakfast here. We're talking 17,200 square foot, 3-story, 10-room hotel. That's what we're putting up, guys. A hotel right in my backyard, 10 feet off my property line. And so we lose a lot of privacy, we lose a lot of peaceful tranquility, ability, and I'm quite confident our property values are gonna go down because of this. The other thing that I think of, I've been there, Roger and Rachel will tell you different, but, in the 20-some years that I've been there, I've saw 6 businesses fail at that location, that we're gonna make it. The next guy was smarter than the next. We're putting up a huge hotel here, and in 4 years, hopefully this doesn't happen, but if the project's broke, what's next? The Holiday Inn Express on this site? I mean, that's what you're building. So I would like to see 20 feet all the way around and the green space kept as it is. And we've been supportive neighbors of every business that's been there. That's not a doubt, but this is just hard because it's going to be so impactful on our property value and our privacy and peace and quiet. I guess the Capitals are building their dream, but it's really coming at the cost of the neighbors' dreams that have been there. So I'm here, I guess, to appeal to everybody's decency to see if there's a way we could possibly work together to come up with, obviously it has to fit a business plan, but, it's got to fit the neighborhood. We didn't get a Walmart downtown because it didn't fit the neighborhood, and that's kind of how I feel this is, a big square box going right next door, 10 feet away.
Okay, I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but you did address the question that I really had for you regarding whether you were here to oppose the variances or whether you were actually also opposed to development.
I'm not opposed to development, I'm opposed to that particular size of building. We're putting 20 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound sack. And if it was built the right scale to fit the lot, we wouldn't have to have these variances.
Okay, good, thank you. Who else wishes to speak against the variance? Yes, sir.
I'd like to go next, I think it flows with Mr. Machado. A group of the neighbors got together and had a discussion about this. I'd like to present this to you, just so you don't have to hear everybody get up and talk. Well, we summarized our thoughts, which I'll get to here. You can see here there's roughly 100 signatures, most of which are on Nicolay Drive. So I think I gave someone mine with the notes, maybe I should switch back to no, I've got it.
All right.
So I'll return here to my chair. But at the end of the day, you can see our first comment in there is that we actually do support this as a project. I live at 2591 Nicolay, which is 2 houses south of where it's presented here. And the thing that struck me when we got together as a group of neighbors is that no one is opposed to the development. Everyone understands it's a commercial lot that has been for 60-plus years. I can't go back that far, but some of the people can. I've heard 80 thrown out. So we understand that it's a commercial property. But Mr. Machado said, at the end of the day, we do not see where these variances actually demonstrate the need as opposed to a want, and demonstrate an unnecessary hardship to anyone but the adjoining properties. Instead of an unnecessary hardship being put at the bed and breakfast, it's actually being transferred to the 2 adjacent neighbors. And so I can go through and read all these if you guys would like, otherwise if you'd like to review them themselves. But we do protest, each request, and the basis for that protest is written here. Primarily, we feel that these guidelines were in place. They're here for a reason. They were available before the property was purchased. They were public before the property was purchased. When I built my house, or bought my house, rather, the first question my wife asked me was if I could add on to it so there'd be a place for my mother-in-law to stay. Not that I really was going to support that in the first place. I did tell her before we bought the property that that was not really on the cards for the reasons that we're discussing here. I can't go back toward the bay. I can't go left or right. I really can't go forward. And I knew that when I signed the loan.
Okay, I appreciate the comments that you kind of summarized here for everyone. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak separately from what this gentleman has done? Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Roger Georgia, and we live just north of the property.
Are you the one who had the adjacent driveway?
Yes, they're
Yes.
2611.
All right.
We're right next door. And we've lived there for 61 years. When we bought there, next door to us was only a one tavern. And to the right of us, facing the road, there was a horse on pasture. To the left of us, there was cows. Well, it's not like that anymore today. But as far as, and the first people that, when we lived there, it was called a surf club. And the people that bought that, they were from Milwaukee, and they had it for about 3 or 4 years, and the husband died, and the lady couldn't handle it anymore. So it was bought by Phil and Molly Ditchin, and they had a place up in Ephraim, and they came down there, and they came and said to us, we're gonna buy the surf club, and they did, and they called it the Meadow on the Bay. And Phil was a very engineering guy. He came over by us and he told us we're gonna put an addition and have just a small supper club. And that's what he did. And he also came, as far as the lot line was concerned, where the trees are today, somebody made a comment, those are Capel's trees. They're not. Those trees were planted by me and Phil. And what we did is we took a string and put it from the lot line up in the front of the thing and way down on the bay. And we planted all little bitty cedars, the full length of that lot. And they're still, the cedars are still there, only now they're big, over 40 years. 50 years, you can say they grew quite a bit. And as far as the easements they're asking for, I'm not in favor of them. I'm in favor of them building a decent bed and breakfast there. As it started, was supposed to be a quaint little bread and breakfast. It's not a quaint bread and breakfast. Now it's a building 35 feet high and right in line with our house. Because we were set way back toward the water. Before, the tavern was way up in front. So I don't quite understand even how variances could be accepted on something like that. Because these are laws that were drawn up by people that know better. And they should, right now, should be abided by. And I had a few other things here, but I'm not going to read it all. But right now, we got people who want special privileges. And even though after all the years we've lived there, and I don't think it's fair to us that they can go ahead and even ask for privileges like that when they know the size of the lot to start with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, I appreciate this. Are there other comments that wish to be made? Yes, ma'am.
I'm the daughter of Roger and Rachel Georgia, and I would like to speak on their behalf also because they've lived there for so long. It was their dream to retire there when they bought the property. They wanted to stay there all their life. And I have fond memories as growing up as a kid with the water and the sunset. I still visit quite often and enjoy the water and the sunset and would like to see that continue. I believe business is good, but I think decent size is more what we're concerned about. And I just want you to put yourself in my shoes. So if this were your parents, they're 80 years old, would you want them to be dealing with this? This is their golden years. You know, their health isn't always the best, so should they be worried about getting a notice in the mail and that they have to attend a meeting to come justify something that they worked on for so many years? And they make it a go of it with all the businesses that had moved into that organization there. So I just want you to think about that as a point. I also want to let you know that I went around and talked to a lot of the neighbors myself and my parents, and we were told it was a quaint bed and breakfast. So when they told me first, oh, it's just going to be a quaint little bed and breakfast, I'm like, oh, that sounds nice. We really like that. As part of a bar and a restaurant. But now, if you think of a quaint little bed and breakfast, I think of the Astor House. So that's a nice bed and breakfast. It's 5 bedrooms. That's doable. Someone else mentioned to us, so I don't want to steal this person's idea, but they said, why don't you buy the Eagles Nest property? That's so much bigger. There's a lot more land there. If you want to have 10 rooms or 20 or 30, there's lots of parking. I think that might be a better place to be. And then I also was very frustrated as I was reading the minutes from January 11th, because Mr. Erfalth I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, Mr. Erfalth, from Mac4 Engineering. He said, quote unquote, their goal is to bring an asset to the city and have it fit into the neighborhood. I don't think this fits into the neighborhood. I'm sorry. Then couple other things I'd like to mention is, my parents have paid taxes all these years and they've obeyed the laws. And I think it's really unfortunate that, we have to go through this system to try to figure out what are the laws now. We don't seem to know what they are anymore. My dad mentioned the thing about the trees and the fences. He too also maintained that front pavement. You don't know where it is now since it's gone, but he took care of shoveling it when it snowed. He took care of cutting the grass when the grass was 2 feet high and the property seemed to be abandoned. So does he not own that front part of the property also? I don't know. I mean, he also went along the fence line and blew leaves. He did a lot of work keeping that property looking decent like Mr. Machado did when no one seemed to care about it. And the last point I guess I'd like to mention is also, and again, going back to the minutes from January 11th, there was a point that was made that there's no specifics given regarding site plans available to share. Nothing could be done until the rezoning was done. But at the same time, the documents that I've seen are dated January 11th. That was the day of the meeting. So there were plans that were drawn, and it doesn't seem like everyone was available as to what those plans were. We all were operating the assumption it's just a quaint little bed and breakfast. So I don't feel that people are being transparent, and I want to make that clear. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Joe Morgan. I'm president of the Nicolay Drive Neighborhood Association. And I'm here to show support for all the neighbors who are opposed to granting the variances and taking care of the parking lot. So we support what they're opposed to.
Okay. And many of those comments and questions would be in here as well. I don't want to let anybody not get a chance to speak, so ma'am,
Yeah.
you go next.
My name's Mary Wilkos. I live on 2850 Nicolay Drive. And I support the bed and breakfast in concept also. And I too met the couple that's planning on developing it when they were having a sale there. And my idea was it was going to be a quaint bed and breakfast. And that's in the context of a residential neighborhood that works, and I was really excited to see it. We already have a chronic speeding problem on Nicolay Drive. Adding weddings there on a frequent basis with people drinking and stuff is going to increase that problem. The other thing is that's a wildlife corridor too, from the wildlife refuge all the way up, and having a big commercial area right in there now. It's been empty for a couple of years, and I realized it was commercial before that, but the scale that's being planned is going to disrupt that. So, I just wanted to add that there are going to be indirect effects. The larger the scale, the more the effects, and the more the spillover to other neighbors. But in concept, I'm still for the B&B.
Okay, thank you. Sir.
Hi, my name's Greg Warner, and that was my wife who spoke previously. And so obviously, my in-laws have the property just to the north of the proposed construction site. And so if I didn't get up here and speak, my wife would kill me. But no, seriously, what I'd just like to address is this. So I understand that basically in asking for these variances, they have to meet a standard of proving a hardship. And I think it's been clear from the comments from people, from Mr. Carlson's comment about the parking that you want versus the parking that you need, that there's no real hardship to them. That basically this is all about what they want as opposed to what is a suitable use of the property. If it's just going to be a bed and breakfast, again, by regulation, they only need one parking spot per room plus whatever they need for the residents. Well, they've got 32 parking spaces. So why are they doing that? Because of what they want, but it's more than absolutely what is required if it truly was a bed and breakfast. And that goes to the point, again, that Rochelle made, that basically people have been kind of misled about this process. It's going to be a quaint bed and breakfast. It's going to be like the Astor House. If you go into the directory of the Wisconsin Bed and Breakfast Association, you'll find a lot of pictures of properties like the Astor House. You will not find any pictures of properties like what is proposed for this lot. So basically, it comes down to, again, them proposing something that's inconsistent with the nature of the neighborhood. That's why they need all the variances, to basically cram this multi-use facility onto a lot that's too small for it. Basically, by the city's own definition, this is a hotel. It is not a bed and breakfast. A bed and breakfast is basically a a structure that has sleeping rooms and they serve you a meal in the morning. Because this facility is going to have common space, you heard the bar, they're going to have probably like a meeting room to be able to accommodate the wedding guests, they're probably going to have a sitting room for people. Because it has common areas, it's a hotel. It's not a bed and breakfast anymore. And so as such, again, you're hearing consistently too that people are saying a bed and breakfast would be acceptable. What is truly a bed and breakfast? If you go in and you look at the pictures, you look at what the Astor House looks like, you look at other beds and breakfasts, people would accept that in the neighborhood because they've accepted commercial occupancy on that lot for 60 years. They understand it's zoned commercial and there should be a commercial property there. So they're willing to put up with that, but they aren't willing to put up with something that's going to turn out to be a Holiday Inn. And that's really what you're talking about here with this. So I guess in summary, the whole reason they need all these variances, and again, I don't think they proved the hardship, but I think the neighborhood clearly has hardships here. There's noise, there's traffic, there's lighting, there's garbage, there's drunken guests, there's DUIs out on the road afterward. So those are all the hardships they're going to have to put up with, to say nothing of property values. And the document that I gave you will also cite a study, a report that was actually done by the University of Houston that looks into the impact of property values on having adjacent commercial properties. And it basically shows, so it's a compendium of all sorts of different studies. And it shows that properties within like a third of a mile of a commercial property have diminished property values. That is a given. That is something that is shown again and again and again in studies. So those are the hardships. And again, in terms of approving variances, the Capwells have to prove hardships. They haven't. In terms of denying variances, the people who want them denied have to prove hardships. Clearly the study shows that these people have economic hardships, and clearly the hardships in terms of the environmental changes with the noise, the people, the traffic, all the people, all the activity on the property, basically that truly is a hardship. So I think just on the basis of the facts here, in terms of what the duty was for the Capwells, what they had to accomplish tonight, in terms of proving that it truly was a hardship, compared to what the neighborhood showed that is a hardship to them, I think that you basically, these variances just should not be approved. They haven't met the burden of proof. I think the neighborhood has met the burden of proof. I don't think it's your responsibility, I don't think the city's responsibility to basically try and retrofit a bad plan onto this property. They knew the rules of the game before they bought the property, and they basically are trying to put a plan, they're trying to put a structure on the property that doesn't fit the scale of the property. Again, you're hearing people would accept something that fit the scale of the property. This doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Do others wish to speak? Yes, ma'am.
I just have something short to say. I'm Diane Hireman, my husband Tom, we live on 2615, so we are on the other side of Georges. We've been there for 27 years and raised 2 kids, water skiing, spending time on the bay.
Okay, let me make sure I understand. You're here?
No, the other way.
There, here. Great. So far we've heard here, and there.
Right there.
Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
Actually, and I think you probably have signatures from everybody on Nicolay Drive.
It appears that way.
We did do, my husband and I did take the signatures, and I think we only had 2 people that didn't sign. One didn't know enough about the project, and the other was, I think, were you at, do you live on that 12, Nicolay?
Seymour.
Oh, okay. I thought it was you, I'm sorry. But one other guy said he didn't know enough about it. But anyway, I feel like we're so privileged to have Nicolay Drive as our home. And as we walk around the neighborhood, everybody's out doing their yard work, and, everybody's like, wow, it's beautiful. It's great. We're so thankful. And we want to protect it. We aren't a neighborhood of a cul-de-sac or a city block with sidewalks or whatever. We are the strip of Nicolay Drive, basically. A few adjoining neighborhoods. And, Florida has so many miles of shoreline, so does Chicago. But we only have that little bit of shoreline to protect. I think the building is too big. I think they're trying to expand into with their variances. Actually, we would love you to be our neighbors. We'd love you to just build a home and raise your kids next to us and be our neighbors. we feel terrible about having to come here like this.
It's your guys' choice, it's okay.
Yeah, thanks. I could cry, but just have to say
But it is
I'm
our home,
against
just
it.
remember that.
And they bought it, they invested the money to do something
I'm
with it.
sorry, but it's not your turn to talk. And I do have to say that, you know, both neighbors knew what they bought next to when they had their houses. They knew that it was a business, but they also knew they had the setbacks and the buffer zones. And I just feel like, where else was I gonna say? Well, the neighborhood shouldn't be having to fit them in. I mean, they should be working in our neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kim Capwell. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak because I'm for it, or are we just doing against it at this point?
Oh, you can speak. We're not.
I would just like to say a couple things. First of all the neighbors on Nicolay or anywhere else are welcome to speak their mind. That it is America. You guys have the right. So we're totally okay with that. There are a couple things that I would like to say. Everyone keeps talking about how the value of their property is going to be decreased because we're doing a commercial building. It's already been commercial. If their value is decreased because a commercial property is next to them, it's already been done. This is not new. Commercial property has been commercial property, so that's really a non-argument. So the other couple of things, it was a restaurant and a bar. You're talking a bar that's open till 2 in the morning. So if they were concerned with noise and traffic, you're talking a restaurant that serves 400 people a night that are coming in and out, drinking, eating. We're talking 10 suites. Yes, 10 suites. We're talking 10 suites. That's 10 people on an average, if we're fully full, 10 people coming in and out of there for a day versus 400 that they served at the restaurant and the bar. And it isn't a bar setting, like you go to the bar and you hang out till 2 in the morning, you walk out drunk, you're peeing in the backyard. I mean, we know that stuff happens, and even our neighbors told us about all the times that they would have drunk people come out of the bar and they'd see them along the fence lines. That is not what we're doing. We are doing a major improvement on it. Then as far as setbacks, the commercial property that's there now, that was there, the Carlton, the asphalt went right up to the fence. There was 0 setback before, 0, because they didn't have to when they built it back in 1930s or whenever it was, I don't know. So we are taking a property that they had 0 setback before. We're giving them a better setback than what they have. We're doing improvements in every way. Less traffic, less noise, better setbacks, better building, better landscaping. Everything we are trying to do is an improvement to that piece of property. And as far as hardships, how many people have trees and flower beds in the middle of their driveways? Nobody. And one person. Why? I have no idea.
On the other side of me does.
But why in Wisconsin with all our snow would we want to plow around a tree? To me, that is a major hardship. I mean, if I gotta have somebody come out, I'm not gonna go out and shovel, quite personally. I've done it, I can do it, but this is a commercial property. We're gonna have somebody come in with snow removal. So the less trees in the middle, the easier it is for snow removal. We do have landscaping all the way around on all 4 sides of the parking lot. It isn't like it's just a bare parking lot like it has been for the last 40 years. It's been asphalt to the fence line, no landscaping. So another hardship, we have invested in the property. Yes, we knew it was commercial going in. Yes, we were aware of the setbacks. We met with the city many times. I would say we probably met with the city, different people in the city, at least 15 times before even purchasing the property, because we wanted to make sure what was all involved. And we have now invested a lot of money into this property based on what we were told by the city. So if all of a sudden now we aren't able to do this and we have to just build a personal home, that's a huge hardship, because we built a business plan based on a commercial property. 10 suites, you can't have a bed and breakfast. First of all, nobody can build a bed and breakfast on that property of any size. Because by definition, a bed and breakfast has to be at least 50 years old. So automatically, if it's a new building, as far as city code, somebody was saying, well, according to city code, it's a hotel. Yes, because it's a new building. You cannot build a bed and breakfast according to code. It automatically is a hotel because it's new. It isn't the size, it's because it's new. The building itself is not 50 or more years old. That's why it cannot be classified as a bed and breakfast. So I'm hearing all the arguments and I'm hearing it, but we are doing as much as we possibly can. We understand Roger and Rachel want peace in their retirement. That's why we're separating the driveway and taking that north driveway away. That's why we aren't going up to the line. That's why we are giving them, I mean, we're giving them more than what they have now. Everything is better, in my opinion, than what it used to be. So, anyway, thank you for listening.
I just have one question.
Everybody will get a chance to speak. I will just caution that we're not going to be running a debate here. The comments that we're trying to gather at this point are to facilitate the decision that the four of us have to make. Yes, sir.
I'm Tom Hireman, Diane's wife. I'm the two houses old. I just want to make sure to reiterate that we did address all those the ordinances and what they're proposing and our objections that we think they haven't met any of these in here. Just that you read this through. And that I don't understand, I guess, where they're going to park cars for a 125 person wedding. I don't understand that. And if they're having weddings every weekend, where are these cars going to go?
That's going to be more traffic.
So I'm just bringing it to your attention.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, with regard to the internal landscaping, well, she brought up a point. In fact, I was going to address it prior to what she said. You know, why should she or why should they have to, you know, make special accommodations for snow plowing? Well, all the new construction, based on city code, says that's what you have to do. The veterans had to do it. Festival's going to have to do it when they go on university. Everybody has to do it. So, I mean, yeah, we live in Wisconsin, we get a lot of snow. Well, you know what? That's part of it. I mean, you gotta deal with the snow. And also, as far as that permeable concrete, are there any studies that can be provided from anybody? No, there's been I guess he was told by some landscapers, oh, well, it's been done for 15 years in Wisconsin. Well, are there any actual studies that can be provided?
Yes, sir.
They're how long term?
15 years.
Well, 15 years, that's not a long time.
It's longer than 15 years, not a long time for a road. A driveway. I don't know how many driveways are greater than 15 years old that have never had anything done with them.
Well, but as far as drainage issues, you know, the neighbors.
15-year study. Provide a 15-year study.
Okay. I'm sure they'd like to see it. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? Yes, ma'am.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I attend a lot of government meetings, and I'm not sure with Robert's Rules of Order, if you ask for everyone who is for it to speak first, and everyone against it to speak second, and to have her have a rebuttal, I don't think is appropriate.
Well, we do try to follow Robert's Rules of Order, but we also try to facilitate a decent meeting. And we're not going to prevent people from speaking in an appropriate order simply because of a statement I may have made at the beginning of the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, ma'am.
I live at 2651 Nicolay Drive. My only comment is, why did you tell us at the January meeting that it was a bed and breakfast? If now you're telling us that it could never have been a bed and breakfast. We were very, very misled, and we really want you in the neighborhood, but we want you as a bed and breakfast that fits that space.
You want me to answer that or no?
No.
It's okay either way.
No, as a matter of fact, like I said, I'm not trying to facilitate a debate. I'm trying to actually facilitate discussions that will help our debate up at the table here. But at the same time, I don't want to suppress anybody's ideas or thoughts or comments. So if there's anything more, what I'd like to do now, yes, sir.
I live about half a mile up the road on Nicolay. I've been there for 10 years. We retired to Wisconsin, enjoying warm Nicolay. I was volunteering at another organization Saturday afternoon, so the people with the petition missed me. So I'm new blood. And it just seems to me, I think B&B would be great in there. But it seems to me that, like, as if the B&B dream just grew just a little bit outside. Not a lot, just a little. And maybe there's 3 parking spots they can give up, it would make it better. But it seems to me there ought to be a meeting ground between the 2 parties here. You can tell from the neighbors down there, they really feel aggrieved. And that passionate response from the builder, it seems to me there ought to be some meeting ground. I personally would be against the variances, but it seems to me there should be some meeting ground for maybe a little bit smaller B&B footprint.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am?
Can I ask a question of the 4-star concept of the?
Yes.
Is there some, you want the 4-star, I understand that. Is there some thing around size to get that?
Right. The 4-diamond, you can go to AAA.com, look up diamond rating, and look up the criteria. What has to happen is for that criteria, you need double showers, double heads in the showers. You need double sinks. You need tile, not linoleum or carpet. You need spacious rooms, which my daughter works at the Wingate, and I measured theirs, and they're a standard hotel size. You need to be bigger than that to get the 4-diamond rating.
So that's really the driver for that, is that 4-diamond?
It's the 4-diamond rating, and there's nothing in Wisconsin for that.
Right, but that's what's driving this size question.
That's one of them, yeah.
Thank you.
Further comments? Yes, ma'am.
I just, I'm Cheryl Mashad. I'm actually right next to them. The question, or not the question, but the comment that Kim made regarding that we purchased this knowing that it was a restaurant. And we did. And I don't have a problem with it being commercial. When we purchased it, we knew there was a restaurant next to it. It was a supper club. A supper club that was finished pretty much by 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and closer to the road. So that didn't really have a whole lot of effect on us where our house is. Now they want to go closer to the bay in order to fit those parking spots in. I think because they want to do the size that they're doing, obviously. That's really what I want to say is that there is a difference between 100 people in the backyard for a wedding, which that supper club didn't really have when we've been there for 20 years.
Thank you. Further comments, questions, discussion? Okay, what I'd like to do now is 3 things before we get into deliberation up here. And so for 2 of you, this is warning in advance. I'd like Paul to once again explain to me and the board the degree to which this has gone through the planning process in Green Bay. So you're going to be first. Jerry, if you care to represent the city, I would like to hear if you care to speak for the council or whatever you care to speak for or against. I'd like to hear from you, simply because I'd like to get some comment from the city council. And I believe we have Mr. Duane. If Mr. Duane cares to speak too, that'd be fine. The reason why I want to make sure we hear from them is because to a large extent what we're doing is interpreting the ordinances that they've written. And we would like to hear from them regarding that. And finally, after I've heard from those, I would like to call up the applicants again. I'm not asking them to debate with anybody here. But what I would like to have is the applicants come up again, and we will have a few more questions for them. At that point, we'll go into our very public debate amongst the 4 of us on how we feel we need to decide this variance. But before we do that, I will have another explanation for you as well. So that's what we're going to do, and Paul, if you could, once again, if you're just repeating what you did, that's fine, but I want to make sure I've heard it and understood.
Okay, so the Capwells made a request late last year to rezone 4 properties, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4 properties. And that was at our suggestion of staff, after meeting with the Capwells regarding the existing zoning that was there in place since the city annexed or merged with the town of Scott. So again, there's a commercial strip of zoning that came through like that. It just was unfeasible for them to build. So we suggested to them to make an application for rezoning. So again, we turned that diagonal commercial zoning back onto the lot lines. The commercial zoning affected 2607 and the 10-foot property that the Regions had. It also affected properties on either side and the property to the north. Those had commercial zoning, they were put back to residential. So we only have 2 commercial properties. The current site we're talking about, the 10-foot strip for the Regions, the rest are now all low-density residential, R1. So after that was completed, we met with the Capwells again on a series of issues with the site plan. So they got to the site plan level process, which basically is the site plan you see before you. Formal submittal, we reviewed it as staff, not just myself, but Public Works and Inspection, Police and Fire, they all take a look at it. And then my initial comments were transitional yard on the north side was insufficient. It needed a 20-foot setback off of this line because it's commercial adjoining residential. And their interior lot landscaping for the proposed parking lot was substandard. So when you have more than 25 parking spaces that are being added, you need to provide 10% interior lot landscaping. They're showing adding more than 25. So typically we see end rows here, 10% of that has to be those landscape islands. So that brings us to tonight. They applied for a variance. They were at the last meeting, I think it was tabled. It was not at the meeting, but they tabled the request. And they're here again tonight to address those 2 issues.
So at this point, at least the planning department, which you represent, has heard from this. You're not in a position to what extent did you approve their development?
We did not approve any development. We approved a rezoning of the properties that were affected that had the diagonal zoning.
Have they had to address this development in any way regarding the city planning process other than zoning?
No, only the site plan process that I'm aware of. And we met several times with the Capwells and their engineer. We tried to highlight things that might be an issue. I mean, we don't always have all the pieces together, but I think we early on in the process indicated a potential issue with transitional yard, potentially interior lot landscaping. So we can kind of give some feedback initially, but until there's a formal submittal, then we gave them an official response. So I don't think we were operating in a vacuum. We try and be as transparent as we can. If there's something we see that's not, or is an issue, we want to let them know. And also, I mean, we're very sensitive to neighbors as well. I mean, we know this is kind of being hemmed in here, so we alerted the Capwells to be sensitive to the adjoining neighbors as well.
And just to further clarify, this was inherited from the town of Scott, you said? This was when the city of Green Bay annexed this part of the area?
Yeah, I forget if it was early, maybe mid-60s or something like that. There was a series of annexations or consolidations that occurred at that time, I believe.
So the city of Green Bay, and certainly the people that are associated with the city of Green Bay at this point, never arranged for the process by which the original building was constructed or inserted into what at that time would have been a semi-rural area.
When we consolidate with Preble and Scott and other communities, a lot of times we inherit the zoning. We don't have a chance to change it. This probably would have been a candidate to change the zoning, but it wasn't a high priority for us. A lot of times when new developments are proposed, then we go ahead and look at the zoning and make a proposal to the applicant at that time. But we felt it was important to change that zoning so we didn't have a zoning conflict, so to speak. So we try to be proactive and get that cleaned up, but it still presents an issue now because of the transition that's there.
Okay. Thank you. Alderman Wisbisky, do you care to speak regarding any of this further than you?
I would love to speak because I also was a planning commissioner.
Yes.
On the planning commission. It appears almost like we probably didn't do our job, but actually we did make a ruling on a big mess that was zoned improperly. I mean, there was little triangle pieces that were commercial. One driveway was residential, the other one was half commercial and half residential. It was a big mess, and at that point in time, we didn't even know where it came from. We originally thought it was Preble, and I thought, well, how could it be Preble? But I think it almost all of it goes back to Preble, and it was actually Town of Scott. I still don't know what it was at that point in time. Was the hotel addressed? Yes, I remember it being addressed because at one point in time, I kind of motioned to Paul and said, don't mention a hotel, they don't want a great big hotel there. And then they settled in pretty much on 8 to 10 units. And so everybody was really happy. Selfishly, I, for one, was really happy to see that building get torn down and get used because it's a rat trap. It's falling apart. As it sat there, the place deteriorated. It became unusable. The roof was rotten. Everything else was rotten. I mean, just falling apart almost before your very eyes. The Eagle's Nest was brought up. Boy, I wish we could, next time when we do that one next time, let's make sure we got that all our I's dotted and our T's crossed, because that would be a nice place to have something also someday. As far as the traffic on Nicolay Drive, yes, it's atrocious. Speeding is almost bad anywhere you go in the city of Green Bay. DWI, all this is all kind of conjecture though, okay? It might be conjecture, but yes, we witness that every day. And as a matter of fact, what we witnessed this past weekend was absolutely horrid. I mean, people going 95, 100 miles an hour, and I call them on crotch rockets. And that has to be addressed by our new police chief. Hopefully he brought something back from California to help us out with that. Or maybe the new older person can now take this.
I'm on it.
But, I'm really leaving with a whole bunch of stuff because I was always really super busy. So, God help her. The petitions, I don't know how many people were on there. Do you have a count? At one point in time, you said it was all the people on Nicolay Drive.
A lot.
There's about 107.
There's more than 107 people on Nicolay Drive, so that's, you're not just missing one or two, you're missing a whole lot of people, okay? So that's not a fair figure to mention. The green space, basically, I'm comfortable with it, mainly because I know, as I mentioned on the onslaught, with this thing we put in a pervious parking lot at Bay Beach to eliminate having a drainage pond, or having a pond, basically. That was a requirement. Is it working? Of course it's working, and it does work. Just a perfect place for that type of parking lot, because you're gonna have runoff that goes into the bay. Here, that parking lot, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know the whole scientific facts of it, but it actually filters the water. It's not gonna just be running off a surface into the bay, of which we have enough of already across that, along the bay. I live on Nicolay Bay also, basically up on Nicolay Road. And we do not need any more contamination of that bay. And I think that was an excellent idea. When I heard we had that, I thought, wow, this is fantastic. As far as the bar goes, wow, have we had problems. We've had people going through that property like a revolving door. I mean, you had, Willie Davis actually owned the place at one time, or ran it. The other people that were there they traded it back and forth between the brothers and the mother. The mother owned it, and then the brothers owned it. And, yes, it became kind of a problem, even that. Any type of a commercial property, regardless of where you are in the city of Green Bay, is going to have that. However, this is a commercial piece of property. So now, can you hold that against these people? To me, this bed and breakfast is about as quiet as you can get for a commercial property. It is not a bar. It's not a tavern. Yes, I'm not too happy with talking about weddings and stuff like that. But again, all the people who are attending these things and getting back to DUIs and speeders and all that stuff, we already have that there. This place is not going to bring that. This place is just going to be there and maybe absorb some of the issues and problems we had before on it. Adverse possession, I honestly questioned that. Our legal department never got an answer. So I just assumed that there was no real thing. I always haul out my own law book because actually I have law in college, and looked it up. And I thought, wow, if there was a place for that, I called our attorney, and He said, Jerry, you got that law book out again? I says, yeah, I do. I said, well, get back to me and tell me what you know. Never heard a thing from it. Do they have that case? I have no idea. Are we discussing that here today? I don't think so. We are sitting here just talking about trying to make something work, and it becomes almost like a shoehorn type effect of trying to get it in there. Hardship, everybody's talking about hardship. And I know you guys make your decision on hardship. I was impressed with the first meetings I went to where you guys had that meetings, and I was thinking, wow, what are you talking about here? And I learned that really quick too. But the hardship here also, I almost say it's equal on my judgment value. And the reason I say that is you have people who are living their dream, and they're building their home, and they're going to be living in this home, and a side product is a bed and breakfast. And they, just because they really do have a commercial lot there, and they can do that. The other thought that comes to my mind, did we do our due diligence in planning? Should we have gone further? And we never had this much resistance even in planning. I don't think there was 3 or 4 people that showed up at that meeting. And now we have all this opposition, everybody against it basically. And I think they're a little bit late. I mean, man, the hardship is extreme for these people who have spent all this money. The building's torn down. You guys went out there to look at it, right? It's torn down. I mean, there's nothing there. They got the money stuck in that property already. They're moving ahead. They're planning their lives, and they want to live there. They want to raise their kids there. My big problem is, though, I got to share with you also. At this point in time, until midnight tonight, I am an alderman, and I represent that area. I have to be fair to both sides. It's hard to speak on either side, so I'm trying to keep this down the middle, but trying to give you my opinion also, because come midnight, maybe I'll come here a little bit stronger if you do this over, but I'm sure you won't have to do over.
You're just another guy, Jerry.
Yeah, I'm gonna just be another guy that'll be worth nothing. Oh my God, that's terrible. I wake up in the morning sometimes thinking about that. Green space, not really. I see no threats for that. I understand that fence line, and that's the first I've heard of today. That fence line on the north line is actually, that fence is actually built on their property. Now, be it was zoned before, be it what is zoned right now, but we rezoned it. That fence is definitely, at this point in time, on Campbell's lot, basically. And he can do anything he wants with that. That's his property. So that shouldn't even be brought up. 61 years living there? Well, I've lived there 37 years already, and I can appreciate that. I also had a conversation with these people also for living there for 61 years, and I said a concern that I would have if I were you, when we were trying to rezone this thing, get the zoning straightened out, my concern would be that someday you're not going to be here. And someday your property's going to be bought or sold, or maybe your children or any relatives or anybody you have. Your property isn't worth a damn dime because it's split in half. The quarter is one part residential, one part commercial. So it had to be rezoned. It had to be actually a point, and that's how it became that. And that's why we actually probably passed it, not only at Planning Commission, but also it came to the City Council. And so, you know, we were included in that decision along with planning. Had many, many meetings with these people who are building it. And everybody else had the same opportunity to come and speak. And I'm a little bit concerned about where everybody was at that time. I mean, it was broadcast, it was communicated. People knew that this was going on. It's nothing new here tonight. And I'm not here to debate with anybody. I'm not here to take any sides. And I think anybody that speaks up at this point in time and interrupts me is out of order, Mr. Chair. That's about all I got. I could go on forever, you know that by now. But I'm gonna hang it up right now. And I wish if Alderman Dwayne is still here, if we could bring him up to speed, I would be interested to see what he had to say. It's a $2 million investment, by the way, too. And that's taxable. Okay.
Alderman Weisman, I appreciate your comments as both a outgoing alderman and as somebody who's on the planning commission. Alderman Dwayne, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, Alderman Tom Dwayne, District 2 Council President. when I seen this come forward, I was really happy, because I saw it was bread and breakfast. You know, I knew it went through planning and that stuff, but I didn't really follow it, because I didn't see any problems with what was going on. I didn't know about the rezoning and stuff like that, and it just wasn't until a conversation earlier with Jerry that the problems they're having. And so that's why I wanted to stick around. Instead of going home, I wanted to be here, because I understand, I've been through this with Paul before in many different areas, and yourself, how many times I've been in front of you for not this magnitude of a problem, but similar. And so when I looked and I heard everybody, and I heard when they bought this property, they did something that nobody's really done in the past. They came to the city 13, 14, 15 times. They got all their answers, so they did their due diligence of what they thought they had to do. So I can't blame them. But when I look at the plan, and Paul is gonna hate me because I say this every time, when I hear about putting trees in parking lots and stuff like that, I just go, why? You know, I understand that's our ordinances. So my recommendation, and I hope this could solve a problem, because you don't want to waste an opportunity, is I would like to see the neighbors on both sides, and I've done this, we've done it at Preble, and you guys passed a variance where we took the trees out of the parking lot, and we put up smaller bushes and that along the fences and along the roadway on city properties, and it all worked out well. So that could be done. There's different ways to look at this, but if we can get just take a couple weeks and have both sides sit down with Paul McGuire and our planning department and say, listen, if you can do this, this, and this, we can solve this problem. You don't have to have trees in the middle of the parking lot. If it's parking spaces, there's ways to deal with that. If it's a setback, there's a way to deal with it. Obviously, it's got to be brought back. There's ways, you got fences there, you put these longer, with their evergreens, that can help delete a lot of the noise. I don't see a bed and breakfast or a small 8 to 10 building like this having the same thing as a bar. Bar is completely different. When it was Carlton, I used to go there and I seen the difference between that and this. So I think it really comes down to is getting the sides together and working with Paul and hammer some things out. Otherwise, it's tough, because it's a big project. You hate to see it go away. It's always been there this way. It's been commercial. You can't go into an area where there's commercial and say you didn't know about it. It's always been there. I understand what the neighbors are, and that's where my heart goes out, is making sure you got some kind of compromise. So I don't know if you can make that decision and wait, because you are here to hear an appeal, and you got to vote one way or another. But if both parties are willing to sit down with them, 2 weeks, I don't think to lose this or gain it is going to be a problem. I think they should sit down. The neighbors on both sides, this is who it affects. I think they should hammer this out and get it done. That really appeases everybody, because it can be done. Minor changes, that they both can agree on. And if they can't, then they're going to come back, and then it's going to be a free-for-all. But to turn down a commercial opportunity that's been there all its life, the city normally doesn't do that. Second of all, we're talking about the Eagle's Nest. You want to solve a problem? Change that now, put it back to residential. So there is no problem.
That's what should have been done here.
Yes, sir.
Could I just add one more thing?
Yes, you may.
I'm in favor of what Alderman Duane is. Actually, I didn't know if you had that option. I thought this was the end of the road, because only reason I'm saying that is you have received an awful lot of information here tonight that I don't think it's fair to you to sit there and go through all that information without maybe looking into it further. I know you're used to doing that, but and I don't know if you really can defer a meeting or have it over at another time. But I would encourage you, if you do that, to don't start all over with all the people. Just get the people who are really involved, and that's the people right next door to them. And because people are funny, they can could go all the way up Nicolay Drive and up to Red Smith School and UWGV. I mean, wow. So you got to be careful with that end of it too. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'd like the applicants to come back up, because there's at least one big question I have for them, and some people up here may have them too.
Joel's trying to trick me.
Here's my question. If we were to deny the variances, where does this go?
I'm not sure. My thought is, and we've thought about it, there's always a potential that this won't be approved. If we shrink this in, I can move it up. I can put parking up here. I can be 20 feet off, and I have to have the parking for the wedding. I don't want it up front because it takes away from the view. That's why I bought the property. The bay view is phenomenal. That's why I wanted the variance for this front, for the setback that's up here. Down here, it's all 20. It's just this section of the building is. This is all 20 feet, both sides. Right when it starts of the building, after this is all up to code. Just this building part isn't in a little bit of part. So the building would have to be squished. I may have to go up 3 stories. I don't think that fits in a residential neighborhood. I don't think it's nice. I didn't want to do that. That is something that the architects talked about, to keep the 10 suite bed and breakfast, if I do that. That's just some of the options that I'd have to weigh in. I don't really like that idea. I think the building that we're building is my home. It's stone, it's stucco. It's not a square box. It's got a front porch. It's got a side rail that looks like a front porch. There's a nice back deck. It's got a vestibule over the middle, beginning part. It's not a Motel 6 and it's not a Holiday Inn Express. It's my home, and I'm building on the bay for the view. I don't know if it's pertinent or not. I grew up in upstate New York, and my grandfather had a cottage on the lake, and it was very similar to this. The point being is that back then and kind of now, only the rich people get to live on the lake and have the property and enjoy the sunsets and be able to go boating. That's why I want to share my house with the people that are going to come stay there. I want to be able to take kayaks and boats out. That's why I'm asking for this variance, and that's why I don't want to go up 3 stories. I think it won't look right. I know they think it's a big boxes in the property. The Carlton Inn couldn't be built with the ordinances that are now. This is all parking lot in the back. It's all parking lot in the front, you can show you out there. The other thing we're talking about is this commercial property. Well, I don't know if you can show everybody the future development of the resident overlay. You have that?
The site plan?
No, the overlay of that whole district. Mine and UWGB is commercial. Out to each side of that is future commercial property.
Yeah, I don't have that. The comprehensive plan recommends commercial that would extend from roughly the region's property to the north. And Parent Avenue is a street that's up that way. Now, we're not going to proactively rezone that because it's residential properties, but it is shown the city's comprehensive plan as future commercial.
What?
Really?
Say that again.
I thought they should all, that's why I brought it up.
Could you please repeat it?
It's not for my benefit.
Can we repeat that?
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so an area on the city's comprehensive plan, which is our long-term land use plan, there's a recommendation that from the region's property to the north to Parent, that would be potential commercial someday. Again, we're not proactively going to rezone properties like that because the current use is residential. So it's just a long-term plan for land use.
Good plan.
You guys have any questions before we?
I have one actually for Paul. In this devil's advocate plan where it's a 3-story building, does that change the 20-foot transitional area?
No.
It's 20 is
Still
the
20
max?
bigger.
Okay.
Tom or Greg, any further questions? Okay, if you guys could have a seat. We'll talk it over. Yeah, you can leave those. Appreciate that. What we do is we do our deliberations in public. This is a public meeting. This is the way it works. So you'll get to hear it and you'll get to see it. We are not a city committee. We are sufficiently separate that if anyone doesn't agree with what we've done here, the next step up is district court. What we're charged with here is to weigh whether or not there is sufficient reason to have a variance away from what the city council ordinance says. That's pretty much all we're here for. We're not here to comment on aesthetics. We're just really addressing those two issues. And the whole crux of the matter is weighing the whether or not it's sufficient, if we think there's sufficient reason to vary from the ordinance. We do have some guidelines. It really depends on the degree of hardship, as has been pointed out. It also depends on the degree to which this property is unique and in some way is unique enough that it's apparent to everyone that the ordinance needs to be varied. So that's what we have before us, and that's what we'll begin to do. Gentlemen, comments?
I guess I'll start by saying, I think part of the whole issue isn't necessarily the bed and breakfast, it's the reception area, because the reception area is what's driving the additional parking spaces, which is creating its own problem. The reception area is taking away potentially from area that could be used for rooms, which potentially could shrink the building, which could meet potentially the transitional setbacks that are in the ordinance. It just feels to me like there is some compromising that could potentially happen on this. I guess I would hate to also see a 3-story building there, but I mean, it's well within their rights as long as it meets every other ordinance. So there are other options. Really, the only hardship is financial, which is not a hardship. So I personally do not see a reason to grant these variances.
Okay, Tom?
I have two problems here. One is there appears to be a cloud on the title. And I would rather wait to see how that plays out.
What do you mean by a cloud on the title?
Well, when they're talking about where the property lines are, with the Board of Regents and the fence lines. I mean, the fellow has a lawsuit going, and depending on how that comes out, might change our perspective as far as what is really involved here. And also, I like the Alderman's suggestion in regards to taking some time to look over the information. I don't think we have to make a decision tonight. And I also think, as far as Alderman Dwayne's suggestion, as far as having all the parties come together and try and negotiate it, I'm certain that if they were to move forward with a 3-story structure, there'd probably be 250 names on that petition instead of 107. So I'd really like to see some sort of a negotiated compromise between the neighbors and the proprietors. So I don't think we have to vote on it tonight. We have in the past deferred. In fact, this was deferred from a month ago.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, my favor is not to defer this. We've got enough people here that have come, but Greg may have an opinion on this too.
Well, I mean, we've heard an hour and a half of, we've received a lot of materials, and I haven't read through it in its entirety yet. I kind of agree with Tom that we should defer. I'm not sure it's critical it's decided today. I understand there's a lot of people here.
Here's my comment about the negotiations. The guy on one side is just him and his wife and his builder and his lawyer and whoever he wants to bring with. It's concentrated. It's more difficult for the rest of the owners of property along here and the rest of the people that have opposed this to coalesce in some fashion. They've obviously attempted and put together some comments. I'm very reluctant to try to require this to be some sort of negotiation. My recommendation would be that we can have them negotiate. because we denied variance.
Say
We're not
that
here
word
to
again?
judge the development. That's for someone else to deal with. We're here to simply decide these variances, and I don't want us to make more of it than it is. If we deny the variances, suddenly there will be some negotiation. If we don't deny the variances, if we grant the variances, it's over right here. So that's why I asked the applicants the question that I did. I wanted to hear it. I didn't get a very good answer, but I think that that's the way we get the negotiation, the discussion to go forward. And we've talked about things like this before, where we've reasoned that the way to get the negotiation, the way to get the discussion is to deny the variance. And then people have to do something.
I guess I would add to that, you know, it seems like the building itself is pretty much, how do I want to say this? They have it as best as they can, place it on the lot. And I don't foresee them being able to make a change drastic enough to appease what has already been objected. So I'm not sure I see, unless you feel that reading through all this material is going to help settle your mind one way or another, I don't foresee how a discussion by delaying this a month will help, because that opportunity has been had. I mean, and if they can't really move much on what they have now, you know, to say, well, I can shave a foot off of this side, I don't see how that's going to appease anybody.
Exactly. That's why my recommendation would be that we not delay this. If this were just, as we've done before, one party came before us and we needed a little more information, then we demanded that they give, like the business out by Bay Beach that we're going to talk about later, that's one thing to delay. And but this one, with this number of people, and I agree with Rob, with this amount of information, I think we understand the situation, or we should. And I think we're in a position, I think we should be in a position to vote. But I'm just one of four.
Could I make one clarification?
Yeah.
A recommendation for denial would prevent them from coming back for a year. I'm not sure they can reapply, you know, you can go on from month to month to month.
You're talking
They
about-
got denied, we'll come back next month and get denied.
You're talking about an apply for the actual variance, not the building permit, correct?
I'm talking about the variance.
Right, so if we deny it, they either have to fit the ordinances, or they would have to wait potentially a year.
Yeah, I just want to make you aware of that caveat.
No, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
And I think that's the only reasonable way to handle this,
Okay.
otherwise we'd be going through everything,
Yeah.
one after the other.
Right, sometimes there's caveats with, you know, a time frame where they can come back. If it's a denial, then it's like from this date, 1 year before they can officially come back, if that was their choice.
Yeah, but anyway, you've heard my opinion. I guess I can't make a motion, and we should have some idea of whether there's sufficient votes for whatever we want to do here.
I guess, based on the fact that the amount of opposition this has received, for how much, you know, really it's going to take to try and get this, what I see as a foreseeable compromise, I don't see delaying this a month as being fruitful. I can't imagine that within a year, if nothing happens and we try to, you know, a variance is brought back again to the board, I don't foresee opinions changing over a year. So I will make a motion that we deny the variance request. Since there's no second, I will have to withdraw it.
You don't have to throw it yet. No seconds coming? Chairman can't second. You guys care to make a proposal?
I would make a motion that we would defer for 1 month.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion before us. Made by Mr. Hoy, seconded by Mr. Babcock to defer this issue for 1 month. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
I guess I will say, if nothing changes in a month, my position will stay the same.
And I'll explain my position. I appreciate the comments that were brought up, reminding us that we're not here to write new ordinance. The ordinance was written, the ordinance was there when the property owners bought that property. I just believe that there's no reason, there's not sufficient reason to grant the variance. I could possibly be reasoned with and come to a different conclusion on the degree to which we need interior landscaping on the parking lot. But because this is a large commercial development that requires or is asking for variance from the very setbacks that were established because this is commercial requirement, I don't see that there's sufficient reason simply to grant that variance so that the proposal can have its four-diamond approval. I think that we're being asked to approve something that is beyond the scope of the property and assumes that we would be willing to roll over on those side yard setbacks that were established because of this. And so my opinion, especially on the side yard setbacks variance, would not change. As I say, maybe I could understand some further discussion on the interior landscaping, but not the setbacks. Does that represent where we are? Tube Sue?
Yes.
Be that as it may, Don, I would like to change my vote from a nay to an aye to postpone final deliberation on this meeting until next month when the other members feel they're more prepared.
Very good. Why don't you make a motion? Since we've already voted on the last one.
All right, I'll make a motion that we delay decision on this item until next month.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Mark, seconded by Mr. Hoy to defer consideration on the bed and breakfast variances until next month. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Sorry, folks. It is a delay. We will further consider this next month.
Mr. Chair, would you be willing to provide some guidance for staff as what role do you see us play or see the applicants play? Is there further due diligence that we should be doing?
Last time there were this many.
I don't know.
Standing in the hallway.
I don't think there's anything more you can do. We don't ordinarily. We're usually doing driveways.
So how does that work as far as, we come back and,
We noticed we had,
we have to go through all the presentations and everything again?
You're more than welcome to come.
And I thought
I can see them first, I think we do land.
That's a different requirement.
But that's the contractor probably.
Yeah, let me make it clear, the 4 people here will be the 4 people next month. We all have good memories. We're not going to expect everyone to remake the case they made tonight. Unless there's something new that somebody wants to introduce. There's no reason for anyone to have to repeat
That's
everything.
why you gotta be upfront, that's why you gotta be there, that's why you
So is
guys
it,
gotta
are you
sit down.
doing the open meeting again?
Yeah.
Or is it for property open meeting again?
Just like tonight. Same people can come.
Talk to them.
We don't have to, we don't make them, don't just, you have to speak.
They walk away from us.
Okay.
But you will, right?
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, tough job.
I think you're on.
Thank you.
Guys, I mean,
Because you guys do it. Yeah.
Thank you.
you were here earlier.
Okay. We'll get right into number 2 next. That would be the McDonald property over by Bay Beach on NG Avenue. Will the applicants come forward?
Throwing a card out.
Yell ahead, 2 hours to do it.
I couldn't get through purple.
How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Good. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Okay, as I recall, we wanted to hear some more information regarding the ownership of the property, and that was mainly it.
Yeah, I think of them maybe kind of like with a projected timeline of land use type of deal.
You want to see it, Dr. Troy? All right. Well, Aaron Breitenfeld, the initial applicant, could be with us, so you're stuck with me today again. Jared Schmidt from Robert E. Lee and Associates Engineering Firm, representing McDonald's. Chet and Chip from the ownership of the property around and then New Water, Green Bay Metropolitan Sewage District owns the property to be leased, and then the city of Green Bay obviously owns all of Bay Beach surrounding. So when you look at property ownership, it's a majority of the adjacent owners, the applicant itself, New Water. This is also New Water. The city of Green Bay owns this. This is the water tower and impound lot for the fire or for the police department, and then some oil storage. So what we did since last time, we had listened to what your recommendations were. We went back and did a little bit more homework. We talked with the alderman who is here. We talked with New Water, who is the owner of the property and would be looking to lease this property to the McDonald's. Apologize for not getting this to you guys in advance. I made the mistake of taking vacation last week, so.
It's okay, Paul took vacation last month.
I did not have a chance to get this to Paul in advance to provide to you. I can quick summarize, but I'd like you all to have a little bit of time to read it. Basically, New Water is in support of the use and the variance to allow the storage lot to remain gravel. It provides a mutual beneficial use, that it's a leasable space for them. It's a low usage, as we talked about last time. And this gives them a immediacy use to a property that is ultimately to be used for facility expansion. Talking with their director of services, and then their director ultimately signed the letter, is that they do not have a short-term immediate need for this. Right now they're undergoing a $200 million project at the facility to the west. Hopefully regulations don't change too much that they have to spend another $200 million anytime soon. But this would be reserved for that in the event of expansion. So there is no 5-year plan, there's not probably even a 20-year plan. Their intent is to to fill, level, maintain, and to, at this point, utilize this relationship and opportunity for an income source to the district. My understanding is it'll be a 10-year negotiated lease. In principle, I think it's agreed upon. The final details have to be addressed yet, but that, again, is referenced within the letter. But they would be of support of the variance to gravel, mainly because of the low usage and understanding that there is a significant cost deviation to go to a dustless surface, whether it be asphalt or concrete.
So the project is outlined in red as you got here, right?
That's the parcel boundary. If we recall, and I don't have it on, but I did bring one other thing that I wanted to talk about. But this illustrates, and I have a copy for each of you, that illustrates a 10-acre chunk of the parcel. Immediacy, we're looking at about 4 acres of usable space, which would take out basically this portion. And then ultimate could go to 10 if the tenant had the need long-term. So we felt in our best interest in the event of transparency to project to you that there is a bigger use if granted that variance. So what we have is the immediacy of the 4 acres. 10 acres may happen at some point. I don't think that's in the very near future. It may never happen. But again, we wanted to have that opportunity to talk about that. One thing we also added since then is that there's a rail track, there's a private spur that goes to the McDonald's other property. And one that runs this way, and there's one that stops about here. That could be extended if so needed. What we'd like to do is actually build a bit of a berm with landscaping, whether it be evergreen trees or something like that, to help screen that view even more so. We did, if you haven't driven it, I just attached a photo of what it looks like today. A very heavy industrial area. And we feel that with the berming and the screening, that'll soften that view and we won't be able to see the use behind it as much. I don't want to say it's 100% screened because we can't tell you that with 100% certainty at this point. But we felt that adding that landscape berming, though I don't believe it would be required by code, it's just something added that will help screen that and provide the visual barrier as people using Quincy, whether they're accessing Bay Beach Road to go to Bay Beach or going down to the boat landing or the Met if they're going there. It's just another little bit of a perk for the project and to try to screen a little bit better. And I think the last thing that we talked about, we discussed at the first meeting about the cost difference. It ranges from $400,000, $500,000 to pave this as asphalt. We're probably in the $700,000 range to go to concrete, and that's our biggest hardship at this standpoint. It's just that it's economically not feasible for the end user to pay a lease rate within the city of Green Bay that's supported by that. As we talked last time, the McDonald's have a dust control practice. The current tenant is actually located on the city property adjacent. It'd be a very similar use, very low usage. And what we have is when we go to the asphalt, even if you're 4, 5, 6 inches thick, if you go to an E1 mix, which is a little bit harder, the slow turning motions really is tough. When you have a semi-truck that's backing and turning sharp turns, that's when it really starts to chew up your asphalt. And then also when you go to those heavy asphalt mixes, you need to have the easels or the equivalent single axle loads to compact that continuously. So you won't put a heavy duty asphalt mix usage lot because it won't act the way it's supposed to. Even when you get to a highway, whether it's a county highway or a major highway, you always look at your traffic counts of your trucks to determine what kind of hardness you use for your asphalt. So cost is one thing, but it's also just the ongoing maintenance and usage of the lot for those slow moving, heavy turning motions. Let's see if there's anything else we talked about. So I think from our standpoint, I think that touches on a lot of them. You asked for the alderman's support in discussion. I don't know if it's at which point we want to introduce him.
We'll get to you.
But I figured that would be after,
we'll get to you.
After our presentation.
Bart as well.
Sorry?
Did you mention about Bart being as well?
Nope.
This area used to be very low, and they used to put bark out in this area for when people used to have their own chicken plants.
Mhm.
And so there's various places when we did put blacktop in, in some of these places, we have to go back and do soil testing and digging out to 3 or 4 feet, because you'll get flexing and that breaks up the
Oh, yeah,
asphalt.
it's not a very good surface, or foundation.
So gravel helps that, and
Yeah.
you don't have to dig it out, it's just very
Put more in
susceptible
this.
to the freeze-thaw process with the organic soils.
Yeah. I think one of the other questions that we had, and you weren't here, Paul, one of the reasons why we deferred it is I was wondering what the planning was for this area, and how that impacted or favored or didn't favor or was neutral on what would be proposed here.
Well, it's proposed to be industrial. I mean, that's an industrial corridor, like Jared said, short-term and long-term, so there's no question about the future land use of that area.
Okay. And then just to clarify, the property is owned by the water people.
The sewer people.
Sewer people. Apparently.
New Water is their brand.
Yeah, so Metropolitan Sewerage District,
Yep.
that is a nice new logo. I don't know what this is. But anyway, they own it.
You feel less bad when you get your bill from them.
I'm impressed. The situation is that they have the land, you have the client. You have the facilities that you have the experience in dealing with this type of facility. So you found a client, you found the land, you just need to be able to do what you need to do, right?
Correct. In order to keep the user in this location, which is favorable, they need rail access, which is a challenge to find anywhere throughout the county, let alone the city.
Right, and this client that we're talking about is a company that has large electric transformers, poles, who knows, big stuff. That's heavy, and that I think, as you guys explained last time, it would be useful for the local community to have something nearby. At least that's the way we would look at it. This is logistically something that may be advantageous to be able to have something here instead of, I think, as you mentioned, something, have to put this a long ways away. Okay, I've summarized, at least in my mind, where I needed to be. You guys have questions for the applicants?
I don't have any additional questions.
I don't have a question as much as I guess a comment. I would say, we talked about in the previous application that, financial hardship isn't a hardship. However, I do think the actual surface and the use of the surface is what your actual hardship is. So I guess more of a clarification of justification down the road than anything.
Yeah, I know where you're
The
going.
maintenance of the surface.
We did address the environmental issue, but, when you drive out there, there's lots of nice birds and everything out there. You're gonna fill it all up. Anybody complain about that? What are the environmental hurdles you have to deal with here? Or aren't there any?
Well, at this point, as we go through the process, we have to fulfill not only the city's regulations, but the DNR. We have to because we'll disturb over an acre of land, we have to meet during construction and post-construction stormwater criteria, which is both reducing peak flows to existing conditions. So we're paving over, we're putting stone over existing grade that can permeate water. We have to match the peak runoffs. We obviously have to meet green space requirements for the city. We have to meet landscaping requirements, and then also we have to meet a stormwater quality aspect. So as you notice on there, we have a stormwater pond. So that'll take the water in, filter it, treat it, and then that'll discharge to the bay at a level that's acceptable to the permitting agencies, which at this point is meeting 80% reduction in total suspended solids. That's the benchmark criteria right now.
Yeah, I guess it's not up to us to interpret environmental laws, and it's not something we need to inject. It was just a curiosity.
Yeah, no, there's a good list of items we have to do. We have to do threatened and endangered species analysis. We have to do the whole 9 yards. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of work that goes beyond whether we pave it or don't pave it.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, environmentally, paving and not paving is a whole big different story. Is that something that's come up in environmental discussions?
It's more or less looked at the same.
I mean, that's what public service had to deal with downtown.
Yeah. The only thing, the
So
low
it's not,
frequency of use.
yeah, there's, you said there, they put bark out there, but apparently you're not dealing with any kind of hazardous waste underneath all that. And at the same time, it's not declared to be a wetland or?
At this point, it's
need to do
declared to.
mitigation or anything?
It's declared to be, I think we talked about this a little bit last time, is that the DNR is currently reviewing it. This was a historic sludge lagoon for the Met.
Yeah,
They've
so-
taken their waste there and put it there. It's clay lined, and then they were in the process of filling it back in. So we have to get their approval as well. And this is kind of, they're both steps one, but this one came along faster than the other one as the folks at the DNR are working through that as we speak. I was hoping to have an answer today, but. they haven't
Well,
quite
I
yet.
appreciate your patience with my curiosity.
No.
so.
Great questions.
I have no further questions.
I'm here.
Okay, you guys could have a seat. We'll talk quietly amongst ourselves.
You want to leave this there since you have maps?
Yeah, we're okay. I think we should hear from the alderman as well as anybody else who cares to speak.
Thank you.
Sure, I would just, Joe Moore, District 6, I would just mention that, sitting down with the McDonald's and talking last week, there are some future plans basically for the entire industrial area involving some beautification projects. When you come down Webster, you see the warehouses, you see a current drop yard at the intersection where Webster and the overpass at 43 is. And this is really just kind of a first step, and we can start seeing some of these other things happen. So I certainly support this, and I mean, they're good neighbors and they're good community members.
Okay. All right, thank you. Comments?
I think some of the concern last time was with the dust control and the environment. Seems like they've got a plan for that, and that's satisfied my concerns. I certainly see a hardship with the maintenance of it in the lot itself. So-
Yeah, what I think I heard, maybe I was just slow on the uptake last time, is that there's certainly an operational reason for what they're proposing that goes beyond simply looking around.
Right.
And I think Rob was pointing that out too, so I'm fine with this. I think what we need to do is understand, and I'm just speaking for myself, we're not a committee, folks, we don't need to get agreement of all of us, but to satisfy me anyway, I think that the whole point of the concern about putting pavement or something on it was the dust control. Right. And I think there's good reason to not need to worry about that, so I'm satisfied that that's sufficient reason in my mind to grant the variance.
Same here.
We have to talk our way through this sometimes, so, and we have to do it on the record, so we seem to be babbling, that's why we do it this way. So I'm okay. If
Me too.
we're in violent agreement as usual, then we can have a motion.
So moved to approve the variance request.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Hoy, seconded by Mr. Babcock to grant the variance as requested for the McDonald development on Angie. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. 4-0. You have your variance, so.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
That's right. You talking too long?
No, you got time.
Oh,
You want to take a break, or?
I'm okay.
Okay.
We don't do it.
Thank you guys, have a good evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for sticking.
Guess if Tom and I, the oldest guys, can keep going, then we'll keep going. Moving right along. We don't anybody have any here from number 3? Ma'am, come on forward. I didn't want to, I just didn't find a card, that's all. No, it's all right. Maybe anyway, identify yourself and explain why you need a variance.
I'm Nikki Griffin. My husband and I own McAllister Properties. It's my maiden name. We used to work for the city actually in public work. I quit because we had children and bought rental property. We own several duplexes in Green Bay. 21 in all around Green Bay. One we have is 405, 407 North Maple. And we've owned it for about I have tenants in there now. We inherited the tenants upstairs when we purchased the property, but I recently just rented out the lower. The hardship we're having is with the limited parking, I can't get very good quality times. The tenants I have now in the lower unit are very good quality, and the upper is okay too, but I have on-street parking for the lower unit until this, and I'm hoping that it'll be granted because it's not I have a problem, but I won't be able to get a lot of good quality tenants because you don't find a lot of people that don't have at least a vehicle. I do have a site plan. This is to scale. There's several copies.
Okay.
The guy at the end of the office, I forget his name, he did a little more detail. I don't know how much detail you need from me, but it is a huge hardship because without it, we won't be able to get quality tenants, which is what I strive for. I pride myself on getting great tenants at all of our duplexes. So I'm just hoping that you can see that. And we are hoping to extend the existing driveway, but also add in another spot in the front of the house. I think that's where I'm requesting the variance. I think this is okay.
Yeah,
But it's
the back part's okay, it's just parking in front of the house.
The reason why we really,
setback.
right, we really need it because with a duplex, which we didn't turn it into a duplex, you can't, nobody's gonna like move their vehicles for the lower or the upper or anything like that. The only other thing we thought of doing, which didn't seem as feasible, was instead of doing this, I don't even know why I'm mentioning it, but adding a driveway over here. But there's a tree right here, and I think this is just the best. This would avoid, you get one car here, the upstairs has one vehicle, then the downstairs, they have two vehicles, it's a much larger unit. They could have this, and that's because the upstairs would then, if she had guests or whatever, she could use the really large driveway once it's extended. We've owned it for 6 months, I wrote that down. That's about it, I'm just,
You said you had off-street parking or on-street parking?
yeah, I've called in for them.
Do you get a special dispensation or something?
You can park up to 6 times a year, 2 weeks at a time, in front of your own place.
Oh, I didn't know that.
When I worked in Public Works, we covered parking, so I'm
Okay.
kind of familiar with parking. But yeah, you can call in for something like this, and I couldn't not approve the tenants I have because they're very qualified. And it'll really help the neighborhood. I know you might think like, oh, it's going to be bad because there's a driveway right there. I think it'll help the neighborhood because people we rent to are very nice. The other thing too is, it is a much smaller lot. I mean, the one next door is big, but we don't have access to the alley, which is behind.
yeah.
That's a really, when we first bought the property, I was like, oh, we definitely can use the alley. You can't, it doesn't connect, and there is no way to connect it. The only other lot that's just as small as the 5-1003, they're small too. But it looks like, do they have two driveways? One on the corner? Either way, we're a small lot, so I'm just hoping that this can be granted.
Further questions of the applicant?
So there's 5 feet in between the sidewalk up to the porch from the driveway where the yellow, is that what we're saying? From this part at this point. in
From this
front,
part
There's gonna
to
be a
the thing.
5-foot green space there.
Well,
Or is that, am I reading
we
that?
would do this on an angle, and yes, there will still be space. Because I think the guy that comes to help me, you have to have a certain space. We're not looking to deviate away from that. We just, because this right now is grass, the front,
Right.
it's half the front yard. So then we would increase it 8 feet.
So the porch that extends out to the porch would just be up to green space, right? You
This will
understand
go
what I'm
out to the
saying?
terrace. And this right here, I believe would still be green space, but now that you're asking me, I'm questioning it, but, kind of looks that way.
That's the way you're.
Like, my concern, I guess initial concern
It is
was the
just
porch
the
isn't
thing.
going, you're not walking off the porch and into the
Nope,
driveway.
nope.
Okay.
You'll walk off the porch onto
Into
the, what is that called when you have a
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
And then the grass will be on the other side.
And there's two grasses. We're
Okay.
hoping to make that one square of grass driveway, and the other square of grass will stay there. And really, it's not cute yet. I mean, the grass is like not that cute. It's,
Yeah.
How many cars can you park right now without getting the variance? Two, that's it.
two, yes.
Okay, I'm good. Why don't you have a seat? We'll,
I think Tom's got a question.
sorry.
So when you purchased the property, you were aware of the existing conditions as far as the tenants upstairs and the tenants below?
We had to evict, well, the tenants below, we had to evict, not evict, he ended up moving out. Now I can't remember, but, he owned the property, his mother died. The tenants upstairs were there. Are you asking, were we aware of the parking situation when we bought it? Yes. However, I thought for sure we would be able to go into the alley, and that's not the case.
You were thinking you were gonna get an easement from another property
When
owner?
to be honest, when we were going through the sale, I was like, oh, there must be access to the alley. I didn't look that closely, it's my husband.
Looks like it should.
Doesn't it? Yes. And there isn't.
And this has always been a two-family?
We didn't turn it into two-family, so as far as we know, it's always been a two-family. Yeah, for as long as I know. Long story short, the guy that lived downstairs, his mother owned the property, she died. He stayed, it went into foreclosure, we bought it from him, thinking he could stay if he pays rent. He didn't pay, we had to kick him out. We fixed the place up, very nice, the unit is so nice. Got good tenants in, Cindy's upstairs, still. So, if Cindy leaves, and I have to rent it out again, I can't rent it out. It cuts it down by a lot when you have to say no cars or one car. So it would cut my pool of candidates down quite a bit without the variance being granted. But we were, I mean, obviously we saw the driveway when we bought it. We knew that we could try to do something about it, you know? I understand why the ordinance are there, but there's variances for a reason.
There's no overnight parking over there, is there?
Correct. On any city street between 3 and 5, but I have the permission for my tenants in the lower unit, because they have the 2 cars, to park on street overnight, except for a snow emergency. But they've only been there for like a month. Because I didn't want to rent it out right away. I was like, oh, there's parking. I can't. Then I knew this was going to go on, and I rented it out. The anticipation of hopefully we can work something out.
But I mean, some of the lots that are behind Broadway, going west from Broadway, none of those lots provide overnight parking, do they?
Well, those are commercial areas as well. I mean, this is more of a residential neighborhood. There is an exemption for that through Public Works.
All right, you could have a seat. We'll,
I'll listen quietly today.
and we'll talk quietly
Okay.
amongst ourselves.
Thank you.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah, this is about as small lot you can get.
Yeah, we've had this situation before where we've got an old-time rental unit kind of thing, and parking is just getting away from us.
Yeah, I mean, we would consider this, if this was a single family, I mean, definitely you're not gonna knock downstairs and say, can you move your cars? Like a backhoe.
Right.
You know, I kind of wondered if we needed the additional driveway, but that's not even part of the consideration. Plus, it gets the cars out of the way for use of that side area, so.
It's not blocking the porch either, that entrance in, so there's no safety concerns, so. I'm
You have a
fine with
comment,
it.
Paul?
Yeah, I think the board has seen this before, and the concern is if the parking space is paved right to the sidewalk, it presents an issue for pedestrians, also presents an issue for this terrace area. It's going to get.
She did say it was gonna diagonal.
Yeah, I don't see that as part of the proposal, but if you want to include that, there should be possibly some widening or some angling of this parking spot so they can be utilized too.
That's the way I understand it, is it goes right like that, right?
I believe so.
The
Your
yellow
plan
part.
was to do a diagonal from the existing
We were gonna,
driveway.
whatever we could be approved, like if you prefer the diagonal, it's fine, because when they pull into the apron, then they would pull into the spot. There's plenty of room with an angle. We thought, oh, well, if we get approved to do all the way to the sidewalk, no angle, great, that's fine too, but it's not gonna buy us another car space.
There should be a taper, basically. There's a
Yeah, and I think
5-foot
that's-
taper required.
Yeah, I guess I assumed there was a
That's-
taper the whole time.
I would prefer an angle, I mean, we haven't kind of drawn up
It
that
looks
way.
better too.
I just want to make sure that the way it's shown, this would not really function well, but there should be an angle here.
Yeah, that's the way it's shown.
Yeah.
The yellow
The
pole
yellow.
is, I don't know why that square is there, I think, I keep forgetting the guy, but.
Okay. I just want to be clear to the
No, I
board.
think
I think he
we'll
drew
make
that.
that clarification in the motion.
What I like about it is she's thinking ahead, because I was there, and there were 2 cars parked, okay? And they're stacked here and here, okay? So as long as she makes this here, they can move the 2 cars here, and then they both can go in and out.
Right.
So, I mean, she's trying to not just gain a parking space here, but also accommodate the need that they're gonna have downstream.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we accept the variance as written with the clarification that it requires a taper for that parking space.
As we believe it's been shown to us.
Correct.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Marks, seconded by Mr. Babcock to approve the variance on Maple Street with the caveat that there be a taper. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You have your
Thank you,
variance.
John. Thank you, Paul.
Next, we have the Kelseys. And you would like to build a garage.
Our son would. He's at work right now. So we're here for him today. As we had, or he had indicated, his desire and reasoning, his square footage of his home is 800 square feet. What his need is greater than that, of course. As listed, what we have, or he has, multiple vehicles, et cetera. And there's a situation too, whereas his work time is 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. So you continuously have these vehicles sitting out, and you only have, I believe, parking on the roadway from 3 to 5. He also carpools, so then each day, 2 more cars are added to that. So he has a single lane driveway. And it is just not going to, accommodate those number of vehicles. And as he stated, I think out of sight, out of mind, whereas when he's not home, it might deter some mischief with vehicles sitting out during that time.
It's still a pretty big garage.
Very big garage.
They staked it out, and there appears to be still ample green space for that. And 2, included, he did get the signatures of all the surrounding neighbors.
All the adjoining property.
Correct.
owners.
And in addition to that, too.
Okay, I think I have a pretty understanding of it. Rob, Tom, Greg, further questions?
With the driveway too, I think excuse me if I'm repeating myself, but it is a singular driveway, and there's no possibility of widening that at all. And 2, coming home at 4 a.m. in the morning, he doesn't want to be shuffling and starting engines, so the neighborhood is listening to his motor.
And he also has a body piece storage.
So the issue, Paul, is that it's bigger than the house.
2 things, that the accessory structure is over 1,000 square feet. first one's allowed to be 1,000. And then, yes, the accessory, the total accessory buildings is bigger than the footprint of the principal dwelling.
But how much, Paul?
Not that much.
Okay.
Because I'll say, it looked like the 28 by 40 was
Mhm.
1196.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
So, you know, I mean, it's quite a bit over the 800 square foot house, and then over the top of the 1,000 square foot.
Right.
You know, just for comparison's sake, you know, I was looking at what I would consider more of a standard size garage, like 28 by 32, and that's 896. So you would alleviate, you know, potentially one ordinance right there.
I thought that there was a glimmer in his justification that there was some fairly large vehicles involved here. Did you pick up on that, or am I dreaming on that?
Okay, you mean large or the number of vehicles?
Large vehicles. I may have been dreaming, because I'm trying to get the rational, see where we're going from is why does it have to be so big? Even if we're okay on other issues here, it's pretty big.
He has a 20-foot boat that he pays storage for.
And there's 2 trucks included in that, and 1 car. And he has a trailer also. So if you're talking size, yes, there are 2 trucks
He
involved.
doesn't want anything sitting out in the yard that the neighbors have to look at, is another reason.
Yeah, that, I remember seeing that in the justification. So we've got a lot of vehicles.
Well, you have vehicles, and you have your lawn equipment, and he has a hauling trailer, and a boat. You're just trying to keep everything covered while he's not present, ideally, and locked.
Just for everybody else's information, because I was curious, you know, I said about 32 length. So I was like, well, what is the square footage on 32 by 32, which I think is a fairly standard type of size also. And you're over 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
So, or 1,000 square feet. You know, on the lot's 60 feet, so I mean, you're limited by width, which maybe makes the length look excessive.
You guys could have a seat. We'll deliberate. Start out our discussions, Rob. I think you've done some serious thinking here. On the surface of it, I'm okay with this. But I realize that we should be having some discussion on, we've got a size issue and we've got the fact that it's, well, we've got 2 size issues.
Right, I mean, and for clearing up thoughts, I mean, 800 square foot is a modest sized home. It's a modest sized lot. So, I mean, I think we've seen this plenty of times where we've given consideration to that. We're meeting, or he's meeting all the setbacks, so it seems like that's okay. I guess it's just.
I have the feeling that, frankly, don't take this wrong, that the neighbors may welcome this.
Right.
Gets that out of view.
It puts everything out of view, not only for, concern about mischief.
You don't have to look at it.
You don't have to look at it. So there's that aspect of it. I guess I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's such a small house, and a small lot too. And, he's got some big vehicles as well, so I think there's been some hardship shown, so I'm fine with it too.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Make a motion to pass the request as requested.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Hoy to grant the variance to Kelsey property as requested, and seconded by Mr. Babcock. All in favor?
Aye.
4-0, you have your variance.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you have the signature page that maybe we could put that in the record?
I think that would be.
I think it was actually in the agenda already.
Was it?
If I remember correctly, but we'll take it.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is a copy.
Okay. We'll make sure it gets in the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we'll go to 2317 Lakeside Place. Fence.
Yes.
We have all the documents I gave you, is the application. And we have some additional neighbors who have voiced their approval and agreement with what we're trying to do. We have a fence, this is always the house, it's about 25 years old, and it's falling apart. And it's a Lakeside Place, which is basically an alley, it's a one-lane street. And the fence goes right within about 4 feet of the street right now at a 6-foot level. And I'm told now that the ordinance has changed where, in my case, about 30 feet of that fence from the road to the north towards my house would have to be limited to 3 feet. So I'm requesting a variance to let us rebuild the fence just as it is today, which is at the 6-foot level.
And your rationale is that it's not that busy a street anyway.
It's not that busy.
It's always been that way, and
To drop it down to 3.5 feet, all we would see is the back end of our neighbor's garage.
yeah, it would, the view would be difficult for you probably and your neighbors. I mean, they'd see what you put there and you can see over the fence. So, okay.
And I know technically this is the front of the house, but you know, it's right on the other side is the bay, so I always think of this as the back of the house. And actually, when we go to the front, as it is now, the fence goes down to 3 feet with the front, I mean, the lakeside. So
You're going to replace the whole fence.
we're going to do the whole thing, and I want to do it exactly the way it is now. Same construction materials, except it's going to get better posts, metal posts. And then just beyond where that trailer is, I want to build a little niche matching the fence to conceal our big garbage cans that we have to use today.
It's another issue we may have to deal with even more.
So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we're looking for.
Further questions of the applicant? Right. Oh, yes, Mr. Alden.
I would also just say this is my district, it's a very quiet neighborhood. It's got, signatures from the neighbors and, everyone's supportive of this, or I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to continue as it is. Lakeside Place does have limited, people that live on it with multiple access points from East Shore Drive.
Yeah.
So there really isn't a whole lot of traffic. For my support.
Good, thank you. And we don't have anything from traffic on this to indicate any issues. No. That's the principal reason for the ordinance, right? And maybe just a visibility kind of thing.
Visibility, yes.
Okay, if you could have a seat. We'll,
All right. Thank you.
I think the neighbors, if they were all here, they'd not only say they were in favor, but
They'd be surprised we're even talking about it.
yeah, exactly. So,
Well,
I'm
I had
okay
some
with this.
volunteer to come, but I said.
We were here for 3 hours, so you're supposed to say your piece.
You're probably lucky they didn't come. Right? Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and to state the obvious, the garage, the accessories in the front setback of the neighboring lot, and I believe we're all in agreement on this anyway, so I'll make a motion that we grant the variance as requested.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Marks has made the motion that we approve the variance for the Ward property, Lakeside Place, as requested, and Mr. Babcock has seconded that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, you have your variance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is
Appreciate your comment.
Yeah.
Karen Shalene. Is
Right here
that-
when I can, I don't get too many.
Shalene's for number 6, the Northern Avenue. I got the right one here? I'm sorry. I'm reading the person's address. Let's talk about Habitat for Humanity. Okay? Sorry to confuse you.
It's all right.
I'm easily confused, especially after 3 hours.
So what we have here is just a variance to change the rear yard setback from 25 feet to 22 feet 8 inches. Given the size of the lots that we have to use, it's pretty tough to make some of these houses fit. The original proposal, we used the smallest house that we had, but it had a detached garage in the back. But we were over 50% impervious surface. So we proposed this house under the 50%. The only variance being that we can change that to 22 feet 8 inches rather than 25 feet.
It looked to me like the inspector missed it on the first time through too. It was only 2.5 feet off.
Yes.
Understandable. Argues in favor of the variance. Questions, gentlemen?
No.
You could have a seat. I don't have a problem with this.
No.
Nope. All right.
Make a motion that we accept the variances requested, or grant the variances requested.
Okay, Mr. Marks has made the motion that we accept the Habitat for Humanity variance, and Mr. Hoy has seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
You're good.
Thank you.
And whoever Karen Shalene is, I apologize for her. She's officially on the record now. Randall Frailing, is he here? Talk about an above-ground pool.
My neighbor.
Come on forward. Let's hear the story.
Hi, my name is Jamie Guzman.
Okay.
I live on 604 12th Avenue. I have been living there for the last 15 years. And I have been working a lot in the house. Last summer I painted and I fixed the siding. And now I think it's time for me to give some time for my kids. So I don't have the enough room to get a pool. That's what I applied for the finances.
So you'd like to put a pool in, but there's not enough room because you gotta be 10 feet. And you're not 10. What's your neighbor think?
We talk about it and...
You must be him.
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about it and...
If I may, the Guzmans have been very good neighbors, okay? Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I know that the place where I wanted before, I had a big window that I would like to open and open like a deck to come out to the pool. But it is true that it's gonna be right next to my neighbor's master bedroom, so I don't think that's gonna be fair for him. So we talked to my wife and we decided to put it in the back.
Okay. So you're not opposed to what your neighbor's doing?
My wife and I talked with Jamie a few days ago, and we expressed our concerns about where he was proposing the first time the pool be and things like that. And it is true, our bedrooms are on that side of the house, and from my house to the fence line is only 15 feet. So the pool would basically be right on the other side of the fence. And we talked more, and Jamie has said that they would be willing to move the pool back towards the alley, maybe starting at the edge of your garage, as you were talking about, in that area. In that thinking, my wife and I didn't have any problem with that. Also, Jamie was thinking about would there have to be a fence? Is that?
Yeah, it's gonna be a fence too.
Does it have to be a certain height?
Yep, it's all in the ordinance. I think it's 6 feet, isn't it?
Max 8 feet, but it can be anything.
Well, I can go.
Well, it's relative to the pool, I guess. It's an above-ground pool.
Yeah.
So,
I
the
can
pool can
go.
provide some of that protection, but also fencing may be required.
Okay.
But there's no variance being requested regarding fence heights or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
All we're talking about is the variance so that you can put it as close to your neighbor as you're planning to do.
It doesn't exempt fencing requirements if it's required.
That's what I was trying to say.
Gotcha.
Whatever they are, they are. Further questions of the applicant or his neighbor?
No.
No. Okay, if you could have a seat. I have a problem with this.
No, as long as the pool goes where it was agreed upon.
Yep.
Right. It's a small lot.
Yep.
Towards the back then?
Yeah, just as it's been proposed to us is the way we'll,
Which is not reflected
Right.
in the agenda.
Right, so it's kind of deceiving, there's an alley here, and there's a street, so I think this is the current location.
Pool's moving back.
So the homes are here, this, I think the idea is to push this back, maybe back where the garage is.
okay,
Driveway, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it will start, use
Yeah,
some,
because this is my garage right here, and they were gonna move it back in this area, right?
yeah, right there.
Right back here.
Okay. I'm glad you pointed that out, because and I'm old.
Now, we've been there for 37 years, so.
All right, I suspect this is another violent agreement, so you guys can decide which ones wants to make them up.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as they've agreed upon in the location in the back of the house.
As it's been described to us.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Babcock has made the motion that we grant the variance for the swimming pool as it's been described to us, in which case the pool's location would be further back, quite a ways further back than it's been shown on this map, and I believe all parties understand it. Who seconded it? Mr. Boyd?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You have your variance.
Thank you.
Make sure to stop in for a permit then, we'll make a change.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'll second your sort of official moment.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last month's meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, minutes are approved.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a question.
Seconded.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned at 8:09 PM.
I have a question for Paul, and you may want to listen.